Hey guys, Alessio, hope you're well. Today I'm going to talk to you about this important chart and how it relates to the stock market. In fact, I'm going to explain to you what the meaning and significance of this particular chart is in regards to major stock markets in this brief video. All right guys, join me. Hey guys, welcome back. Before we talk about the stock markets, let me just briefly tell you where I am. I'm currently in Scarborough in the north of England. Beautiful place, by the way. But let me just show you what's behind me here. Guys, just take a look at this amazing view of Scarborough behind me. It's pretty chilly and cold here, and the wind here can be very freezing. And by the way, this is a very old castle, Scarborough Castle, from over a century ago. Drove here today just to look at some historic sites here in the north of England. By the way, driving through here, see some amazing scenery coming through to Yorkshire and Scarborough. Anyway guys, let's talk about the stock markets. I'll keep this video as brief as possible. So we saw a major significant drop in the stock market, as I'm sure you remember, back in the month of March and April. So in early April, we saw a significant drop in the major stock markets. A drop, by the way, that we anticipated, as you may recall from my video interview with trader and analyst Manuel Bly of the DowTheory.com. He correctly forecasted and predicted the big drop that occurred in the major stock markets, because after a Dow theory bearish signal, the odds increase for a potential minus 16% drop and even an 11% drop on the S&P. That would indeed take it down likely into this range. I would say anywhere from between 5,200 to potentially 5,130. What's interesting about this is this. First of all, some people may not realize this, that because we had the capitulation signal at the lows that formed in April. So as I explained to you in my previous video, the sharp drop that occurred, the big collapse that occurred in the stock markets in early April, that actually triggered a major capitulation event. You saw this from the previous chart I showed to you in my previous video. So according to Jason Geppert of Sentiment Trader, there was a significant capitulation signal at the start of April. There are also other indications, like the sentiment just collapsed. The CNN Fear and Greed Index showed a 4 reading. Some people told me there was also a 2 reading on the Fear and Greed Index. In other words, the fear was such a significant high that, in other words, confidence in the stock market had dropped to 4 or even 2. Based on some readings in the Fear and Greed Index. There are other indications, capitulation too, which I've discussed in the members video. In any case, the bottom line is that, as we expected, as the capitulation formed, we also predicted there would be a strong bounce in the stock market. Here's a clip. The bottom line is that the markets are becoming so extremely oversold that the probability is now increasing for a strong bounce. And I should say that the next major rally and bounce in the stock market could very well come back up and fill this gap here at near 5,400. That's an open chart gap. All right, guys, so we had that bounce now, that very strong bounce, and we've had a pullback. As you can see, we've had just recently we had a pullback in the major stock market as well. What's interesting is there was also what's called a breadth thrust signal. Okay, now a breadth thrust signal is one of the most bullish signs or bullish signals you can get when it comes to the major stock markets. And we've had this based on what this chart shows. So this is an important breadth barometer of the stock market. I would say market breadth is a bit like opening the bonnet of a car and looking at the health of the engine and what's going on inside the car. So in other words, looking at the breadth indications is a bit like looking at the health of the overall stock market. And what's happened is, as you can see here, this barometer dropped to a 5 reading. Okay, that occurred during the major collapse, the major crash that occurred in early April in the stock market, okay? And by the way, guys, before we continue, let me just quickly mention that if you're looking for a reliable trading platform with fast execution, then make sure you check out Raidex. Raidex Markets, by the way, is our sponsor for this video. With Raidex, you can trade a variety of different markets. For example, forex, stock markets, individual stocks, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also precious metals. So make sure you check out Raidex. I'll put the link for you guys in the description, and you can apply for an account there with that link. Thanks very much. Look at this barometer, this breadth barometer. It collapsed to a 5 reading, as you can see on this chart. Now, what happened afterwards is this barometer then surged. It rallied and went higher above the 20 level and above the 25 level. When this barometer dropped to a 5 level, that showed extreme oversold conditions. And when this barometer goes from extreme oversold to less oversold, so from 5 to 20 and 25, this gives us a breadth thrust signal, a very strong and powerful market breadth thrust signal. It's very difficult to actually pronounce that, market breadth thrust signal. According to data and some studies, after such breadth thrust signals, the market, in other words, the major stock markets like the S&P, tend to rally, or in other words, tend to go up and show positive returns, typically by about 10 to 15% going forward. So in other words, guys, when something like this occurs, typically these breadth thrust signals end bear markets. In fact, these market breadth thrust signals, when they occur, they're usually indications that the previous bear market has ended, or it reduces the probability of a bear market. And I should say this, because we've had capitulation at the lows that occurred in the stock market, even if we get a bear market signal in the short term, let's say in the next couple of weeks, we can ignore the bear market signal and just focus on the capitulation, because again, capitulation in combination with bear market, a bear market signal is made invalid. Okay, it's overridden by the capitulation signal. All right. So in other words, guys, this breadth thrust signal, as we can see here on this chart, is a very bullish indication for the major stock markets, indicating that we could see higher levels in the next several months. We could potentially see a continuation of the rally in the next several weeks and months. And that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm looking for a further continuation of the rally to higher levels. By the way, I should just add that after such strong rallies, there typically is a pullback as well. So I'm not saying the market's just going to keep going up without a pullback. No, I think some kind of a retracement to this rally or some kind of pullback is quite probable in the near term. Now, I should say, I don't know at this point whether we're going to get higher highs, all-time highs. I don't know that. It's too early to call that. But at the very least, we could get a continuation of rally to some important higher levels and targets, which I covered, by the way, in the member video. So go ahead and watch the member video for more details about this. But nevertheless, guys, the capitulation signal we had in early April, and also this particular breadth thrust signal, they're all very bullish indications, very positive signs for the major stock markets, at least for the next several weeks and months, as we head into the summer period. Hey guys, I just noticed something. If you look over there, look at that amazing building in the distance. All right, guys, hope this video has helped. And from here in Scarborough, with this amazing view here behind me and Scarborough Castle, I want to wish you a fantastic and beautiful week. See you guys in the next video update. Cheers.